we're going to talk about run fits in the 4-3 system. This is critically important. We want to stop the run. But with stopping the run, you have to be sound when you stop the run. And that's, talking about run fits. Who's got what gap, et cetera, et cetera. And there's lots of different things there that we need to discuss. First off is positional run fits. So by position. So first we're going to talk with the defensive linemen, your D-ends, your D-tackles, et cetera. Generally speaking, and everything that I'll say here, this is all camp rules. So when we install this in spring ball, we install this in fall camp. That's what I mean. You have to have a starting point. You can't be him-hawing about, well, we spill the ball, we box the ball here. I think you always have to have a starting point. And then from there, you build. And I think kids can learn that way. You need something to hang your hat on, and then you can adjust from there. So generally speaking, without a doubt, we are a box team. We want to force the ball back inside with our defensive ends. All right, we box the football. Our defensive tackles now, they're inside. They're going to spill the ball. So if they would ever be unblocked, really the only plays would be a wham play, the old fullback trap play where they get unblocked and the guard comes in. We're going to try to spill that ball outside, all right, to our defensive ends who are, again, boxing everything inside. Nonetheless, they want to get vertical and attack. Now, when I say get vertical, it's critical. This isn't, pee-wee football. I remember back when I was a kid and, you have your old, just say that's an offensive line right there, and there's your D-end, and you tell your ends, go up and box. And he literally ran up 5 yards, turned, and turned inside. That's not the technique we use. Okay, box, we want to keep the ball inside of us. We're going to go upfield, but it's all in relation to our key. And back in our alignments section, we talked about our key. Our key for our defensive lineman is the outside shoulder, all right, of their technique. So if it's a tackle per se, I'm going to attack and get vertical all in relation to him. Now, he could reach block me. So now that we have to go outside, he could go down block. We got to go down. All right, if he pass sets me, well, then I'm going. Okay, so always remember that. It's not just go. Coach said go up no. It's in relation to who your key is. All right, our defensive ends, they are always C-gap or D-gap players. All right, C-gap or D-gap players, and that can change. But again, it's usually always one of those two. And our tackles are always either A or B-gap. So if I'm a tackle, if I'm in a 3, I'm a B-gap. If I'm in the nose, I'm in an A-gap. And it's very simple that way. We want to play the pass and react to the run. All right, we want to play the pass, attack, get off the ball, get up in your stance, and let's go. Let's have some burst. And then if our tackle down blocks, if we're about to get kicked out, we react to that. All right. And then finally, 2-to-1. This is a very good technique that we use. This is something that we do to maintain our leverage. 2-to-1 with all of our guys, especially our ends. We're going to take and strike. We're going to strike that shoulder, chest and shoulder, 2 hands, right? 2 hands. These are big boys. And then as we engage, we want to engage 2-to-1. All right. Maintain our outside arm and leg free. All right. Nice low pad level. That's what 2-to-1 means. You'll hear me refer to that a lot. But again, we're striking with 2. We're going to press off to 1. You never want to stay maintained with 2, especially if you're playing a gap, because that's where the offensive tackles, offensive linemen can grab you in there. Even though the offensive coaches won't tell you they're grabbing, but they're grabbing you. And then, if it doesn't get called, now we're out leveraged to wherever we're supposed to be. All right, linebackers. So we are run first players, period. Fast flow. So you read run, you see run, you attack. All right, get in the backfield. We want tackle for losses. All right. We talk about apex with our outside backers, right? If you ever remove number 2, we want to apex. And that's kind of coach speak. And what do I mean by that? We barely get wide enough to get a reroute. All right, but never wide enough or too wide to do our job in the run. That's so critical. One of our outside backers will always have an internal gap unless we do something to take that away, which we'll get to later. But point is, if you have a gap and I'm apexed, I better be tight enough that I can play my run fit without worrying about rerouting my receiver. All right. Block destruction. Again, receivers practice blocking every day. We got to practice block destruction. That's collision, rerouting wide receivers, and getting off blocks in space. Today is the age of spread football, throwing the ball on the perimeter, receivers blocking linebackers in space. We got to make that a non-negotiable. They shouldn't be able to do that. We're going to be out more physical than them and be able to get off blocks. As far as our zones we play, we're a matchup zone behind it. And there is a certain area on the field called a no-cover zone, and we'll get to that in a second. Cornerbacks. We put our best cornerback into the boundary. That is usually what offenses try to do. They try to isolate their best receiver. So we're going to put our best cornerback over there. And he's usually not an immediate run player, although he has to have some, courage to get into the run fit. How could he be in the run fit? Well, the number one receiver could go in and crack. If we ask to blitz him, we'll run a number of corner blitzes. If we're playing a cover 2 shell over there, those are some ways that he'll be getting to the run fit a little bit. He'll never have an immediate gap, but he's got to be courageous enough to get into the fit. Crack replace, like I just alluded to, if the receiver goes in and blocks our force player, well, he's got to be able to replace and be the force player. And then finally, cornerbacks, they give the illusion of press all the time. We can press bail, we can play cover 2, and we can corner blitz. All right, our safeties, they must have great eye discipline. All right. We're asking them to make everybody right. We're asking them to be the extra hat in the box. We're asking them to cover the number 2 receiver vertical. And when I say vertical, that's anywhere past 5 yards, a post, a dig, and out, a corner, whatever it is. So they need to have great eye discipline to not get fooled, not look at the eye candy in the backfield, the motion, the play action, all that, and do their job because they are our last line of defense. Quarters is very aggressive, but when you're playing very aggressive, you ask any offensive coach, they love it because they want to be able to take shots. They have the opportunity for big plays if we're not sound. But we're going to be very sound and very disciplined at that position. All right, they got to be able to beat the crack and understand, like I talked about with the corners, crack replace. So if here's the football, I think this is pretty basic, but you have a number 2 receiver here, say a number 1 receiver there. There's your safety, and there's your backer. A lot of times you'll get this number 2 receiver come in and crack that linebacker. If that happens, we need to replace. So we're playing 2 vertical, we're scooch. We get a run read, he goes to crack. We need to be right off his butt, replacing there to be the force defender. All right. Next thing is the hard deck, and I have a nice diagram of this, but there's an area we call the hard deck. It's 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. This is an area that any route below the hard deck, our safeties do not cover. That's for our underneath defenders, unless that guy's blitzing, which again we'll get into when we get into some of our 5-man pressures. But anything from above the hard deck, that becomes ours as safeties. All right. Versus trips, we cross read. We got a cross read number 3. All right. Versus trips, we cross read number 3. We don't have a 2, but if they go trips in our base quarters, we're going to cross read 3. If 3 is vertical, we have him. If he does anything else, we become what we call a robber. He becomes free. He's an extra hat in the defender. He's helping out, poaching from the front side, or he's doubling on the back side. All right, safeties, you are oftentimes our +1 in the run. See ball, get ball. If you don't have an immediate number 2 threat, then they run the ball, go, attack. We put our best safety to the field. He's got to be able to handle 2 vertical, again, which a lot of offenses try to do nowadays. And then finally, great eye discipline, which I kind of mentioned up here. Window dressing or eye candy is again, what all these offense coordinators try to do, when attacking a defense. Now, some base run fit.